Scotland. You mentioned your pro licence.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's so many good coaches that come from Scotland? What do you think that's down to? And you mentioned your dad when he was at Bolton and Blackburn, but during that time there was Alex McLeish, Sir Alex Ferguson, other great Scottish coaches. And if you look at the history of the Premier League as well, there's been some good coaches up and down the footballing pyramid. What do you think that is?
I think particularly if you look at that era of football, and particularly the Premier League, which was and still is the top division as far as awareness, quality and everything that follows, I think Scottish coaches have really, really good soft skills. So they know how to build relationships with people and they know how to manage people. Now, I'm not saying that isn't the case for any other country or group of people, but I think it comes across from me, a lot of the people I've come across in my time of coaching, that there's an authenticity behind it. And naturally that will then be down to how you've been brought up. It'll be down to the local community that you've been brought up in, the people that naturally you're directly in contact with on a day-to-day level have probably helped shape your Alex McLeish, your Sir Alex Ferguson, my dad, David Moyes, these guys. That
Steve Clarke would have been there as well.
Yeah, Steve Clarke. There's so many that have been top Premier League coaches and worked at that level. So I think that's one massive facet of it. If you ask me why do I think there's less Scottish coaches in the game now than what there was, I think because the game's also evolved and developed, particularly from a tactical sense, and I think the game has moved so quickly that maybe Scottish coaches as a whole are trying to still catch up to that as far as developing younger players to have that exposure. You look at the Scottish Premier League and the amount of young players that are playing in the league at the moment, which I know the Scottish FA are fully aware of, and they're driving a lot of changes to improve that. But there's not a lot of young players playing in the Premier League. And also, if you look at the style of football, I think Scotland had one of the highest, as far as data goes, direct play from goal kicks in comparison to any other league in Europe. Now, it's not to say that's right or wrong, because the game can be played in a million different ways, but I think we've also seen the game change to more of a possession dominant style, which Scottish football, that's not Scottish football, and I'm saying hopefully never will be, but I don't think Scottish football needs to follow the trend of that. I think Scottish football needs to decide what is it makes it exciting, what is it that makes it different, and that would also then allow potentially Scottish coaches in the future to come back into these top divisions and bring a little bit of that to it, but also understanding how the game at the top level, being the Premier League's evolved, and making sure that you've got principles and approaches that align to that. So, I think it comes back to soft skills and being able to build relationships with people and building that trust and rapport.
It's improved though, if you look at the performances of Celtic in the Champions League and Rangers in the Europa League, and even the European Championships last year. I know it was a bit of a difficult journey, but you see that progression?
Yeah, for sure. There's loads of progress as far as small steps, and again, it's not built overnight, but the Scottish Premier League, like any league in the world, if it's not in the Premier League in England, there's so many different resources available in comparison. So if you look at Celtic or Rangers, they have incredible amounts of resources compared to the other teams in the league. Even if you take Celtic, they've got incredible amount of resources compared to Rangers at this moment in time. Rangers then more so than Aberdeen and Hearts and Hibs, then more so than, and you go on and on and on. But you still compare that to your top European teams. Celtic and Rangers are dwarfed by even a Fenerbahce the Rangers came up against only a few weeks ago, but Rangers had a fantastic result and performance. There's definitely steps and strides forward as far as the game goes from a performance lens. I think development of young players to help those teams progress, but also to help the national team better, I think is where everybody wants to go with it. But it's making sure that that's brought to life, and it's not an easy thing just to click your fingers and say we're going to do X, Y and Z and then it just happens overnight. It's building that full buy-in from everybody within the game to try and achieve that, and then taking the appropriate steps to do so. But yeah, for sure there has been small steps, and yeah, the league's always been competitive. You take Celtic back in the UEFA League as it was, UEFA Cup back in the day at Seville. They went over and played Porto when Henrik Larsson played and Mourinho was at Porto. So they've always competed every now and again, but they probably want to be more consistent in being in and around the top teams across Europe, however that's achieved.
How's the pro licence for you? Obviously you mentioned the development of Scotland, but obviously doing your pro licence with the Scottish FA, am I right in saying that?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So how was that for you in terms of seeing that evolve and being involved with, you mentioned strategies and coaching styles and soft skills, etc. How do you see that in terms of the development of Scottish coaches in that sense?
Yeah, really good. And one of the things that the Scottish FA Pro Licensed Coach course offers, is we have another group of foreign students that are on that course as well. So we've got coaches from different countries. One, Gil Sosa, that's working at Famalicão in Portugal at the moment, and he's assistant coach there. So to learn from how he works in Portugal and what's the differences between Portuguese culture and then Portuguese football and everything that sits within that, and how does that then relate to the Scottish game. And that's done indirectly just through networking and chatting. You've got a gentleman called Jens who's been the assistant coach at Benfica and worked at that top level as well, but again within Portugal, but he's also German, so you understand a little bit the German aspect on how they build their courses up from a pro licence or UEFA A perspective, because that was the courses that he'd done, and then how that relates to what we do here. So there's definitely that networking from foreign students and overseas students, which is a real benefit, but then also seeing what we're learning in order to help us, if we do become future head coaches or managers, that is relevant to modern trends of the game. So we've just been over to UEFA over in Switzerland, and we had a 4-day event, and again it brought coaches from all over Europe together. So there's coaches from Lithuania, there was coaches from Turkey, Croatia, ourselves, and again having those group of people come together, share experiences, knowledge, but also have UEFA driving, here are the modern trends, here are the strategies that are ongoing, here are the future topics to be aware of that will relate to you within your role. It's really, really important, because you also need to future-proof yourself where you can for what's about to come. And nobody's got a crystal ball, but being able to map out that journey of what could the future look like and how am I going to be able to make a mark in that positively, I think is really, really good practice. So yeah, there's been loads learnt from the UEFA Pro licence with the Scottish FA. I've absolutely loved it. We've got 2 months or so, I believe, left before hopefully completing, and at that point I think I'm the youngest on the course, which is something that again I'm proud of, because being younger on the course, you're getting to lean on and learn from those that are also a lot older, get a lot more experience under the belt, but hopefully someone who achieves UEFA Pro licence, then myself can then go on to have a successful career, and knowing, looking back, that all those people again have leaned on and have helped me get to eventually where I want to go.
What do you mean by future-proofing? So can you explain that? Is that a new form of coach? You obviously see the trends of set-piece coaches and how that's publicised in the media. Can you give a little bit more depth in that? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, future-proofing can be anything you want it to be, but essentially looking at the data and look at the trends of what could come in the future. So again, without going through what can come and not making stuff up, because nobody knows what's about to come, but you'd be able to see that actually the game has evolved from probably more of a direct game on the pitch to then being more possession based. Is that going to last forever, being more possession based? I'd maybe put questions behind that. My personal feel is the game will become more direct again, maybe not as it once was, but maybe in different ways, maybe through more transitional approaches. And again, if you look at Nottingham Forest at the moment, they're the best team in the Premier League have been transitional and where they are and succeeding and pushing through that ceiling. So there's definitely future-proofing trends on the pitch, but also looking at how the game's evolving through the broadcasting, driving more money coming into the game. How long will that money remain in the game? What's maybe going to change in the future around that, as far as contracts, as far as the transfer market, as far as how that impacts loans? So almost everything impacts everything. It's a domino effect, but it's looking at that within your sphere, within your own role you're doing, within where you want to go and going. What do I need to do to basically be ahead of the curve? And I think if you're looking to constantly be ahead of the curve, whilst also still being present and doing what you need to do in that moment and being good at it, then you give yourself the best possible chance of being successful within whatever remit that you're going to go and work in.